If I asked you what the resiliency officer does in Rhode Island, could you tell me?
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
If you could, you'd be further ahead than I am, because I'm still not really clear as to what this unpaid position does, but reportedly it's really, really important. So we're going to kind of work through that this evening. Great to have you aboard. Thanks very much for tuning in to our State of Mind on this rainy Wednesday evening. Politics beginning to heat up. We had Patricia Morgan, the state representative, actually the minority leader and Republican, who announced she's running for governor last night. If you missed the show, it's on foxprovidence.com, of course. Yesterday evening, Alan Fung decided that he was going to take another whirl at it, and he suggests that Gina Raimondo's report card disqualifies her.
We're running against an incumbent governor who has lined her pockets with millions of dollars from Wall Street, from people in Chicago, people in California, and from other places that is not Rhode Island. She knows she can't win running on her own record, so she's going to spend all of that money making excuses for the status quo and attacking me.
I don't know about that, Alan. You got a primary that you got to win first. Everybody always says, "Oh, well, I'm after the Democrat." All the Republicans do, but the field is getting full. Patricia Morgan is in it. Former state representative and honorary co-chair of the Trump campaign, Joe Trillo, is about to get in it. Giovanni Feroci, the Alex and Ani star, who has had some real turbulence with his Benris project, reportedly is thinking hard about getting in it. I don't know, you may want to get in it. It's going to be quite the crowded primary field. And so Alan Fung's got some work to do there in that primary season. I have to tell you, I listened to his entire more than 20-minute big night. I like Alan. He's a nice enough guy. I say that to qualify that I think he's a B- player at best. He's got an A+ ego, but a B- player at best. And last night's speech was just more of the same. You know, I want to take back Rhode Island. Doesn't explain what that means. Maybe you could let me know, either here or on the radio at WPRO weekdays 3 to 6. What does taking back Rhode Island mean? Taking it back from what? I don't know what the cliches mean anymore. I just don't. I'm exhausted by them. But 2018 is another election year. We got to get ready for it one way or the other. All righty. By the way, the UHIP thing is a real problem for the governor. And Alan Fung rightly and the other opponents rightly will be really banging on the governor on this whole thing. In this latest debacle where some 7,000 applications were misplaced by the contractor Deloitte is not healthy for anybody. We'll see. All right, let's talk about this concept of resiliency officer. When this appointment was made last month, I was just puzzled as to what it means and puzzled as to the entire setup of the situation. So we've been honored by the presence of the resiliency officer, who is Shaun O'Rourke, kind of a new Rhode Islander, sort of, a year in, and our chief resiliency officer. Shaun, welcome. Nice to have you.
Great, thank you for having me.
So do I call you officer? Do I call you chief? Do I call you CRO? What do I call you?
How about Shaun?
Okay, it's fine. But really, what is it?
Well, maybe I can start.
Am I the only person who's asked you this question?
No.
Good.
No.
All right,
no.
good. Because a bunch of people on the couch are trying to figure this whole thing out.
Yes, and it's a fairly new position, nationally and internationally. But maybe I can start with the infrastructure bank, because I think that sets a good sort of framework for how this position works inside of Rhode Island.
Infrastructure bank.
Yes.
Do it slowly. What is the concept of the infrastructure bank?
So most simply, the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank provides financing to build, support, maintain, and improve Rhode Island's infrastructure. So we work with public and private sector clients, so municipalities, towns, cities, local residents, as well as business owners, with two primary goals in mind. The first goal is to improve the economy. So increasing jobs, so creating new jobs through the projects that we finance, but also saving taxpayers dollars as well through low-cost financing or low-interest rate loans that the bank can provide. The second goal that really is a thread throughout all of our programs and is a direct tie to my Chief Resiliency Officer role is the goal of protecting the environment as well. And that's really, those are the two core goals of what we do at the Infrastructure Bank.
Okay, so the Chief Resiliency Officer works at the Infrastructure Bank.
Correct. So
Sort of.
Well, yes, I'm a full-time employee of the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
With a title that is?
My title is the Director of Stormwater and Resiliency. And that was the title and the position that I was hired under and continue to have. And on September 15th, when the governor signed an executive order launching a climate resiliency action strategy, she also named me as the Chief Resiliency Officer for the state.
For no extra jing.
No extra charge. Why I'm named to that position and why my position is at the Infrastructure Bank really is because it's a natural extension of the work that I was already planning to do at the bank, which is very much focused on coordinating and accelerating investments around climate adaptation projects. So how can our aging infrastructure around the state be better prepared for a changing climate that we're already starting to see those changes right now, as well as increased collaboration across state agencies and other partners.
Define resiliency.
Yes. So there's numbers of definitions depending upon who you ask, but our working definition right now in the state as we move through this resiliency planning process is the ability for our infrastructure, our residents, and our economy to bounce back, and not only bounce back, but bounce forward from what we're calling acute shocks and stressors. So those are the climate change impacts that we're seeing within our state. So how can we be better prepared to withstand, the impacts of, say, a hurricane, or increasing floods, or the precipitation that we're seeing around the state?
What's your background?
So I'm a landscape architect by training. So I've worked in the private sector. I've worked in the academic sector as well. But most recently, I've worked at the Trust for Public Land, so a national nonprofit organization, as the National Green Infrastructure Director, coordinating investments around stormwater as well as climate resiliency in cities around the country.
Are you an environmental guy?
Yeah, I would say at my core, I'm an environmentalist.
By interest or by training?
By both. Both.
Explain.
So as a landscape architect, we're rooted in the practice of working with natural systems as well as with people and infrastructure. I think that's prepared me really well for this role. We also have to speak a lot of languages as well because we're working across disciplines. So civil engineering, sociology, working with residents, and you have to figure out how all these pieces work. And I think landscape architects are particularly good at that. But my role at the Infrastructure Bank is an interesting one, right? Because I get to speak different languages with the many constituencies around the state.
Is that like a cool term, different languages? You're not talking about Japanese and German, are you?
No, it's a great question. So one of the things that we see is
kind of like your code. You're kind of
it's our code.
It's kind of
yes.
like your hip vernacular, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So civil engineers, speak a language of technical, terms, right? How things get built and what works and what doesn't work.
Right. Pretty linear thinkers, actually.
Exactly. You can, put that on the other side with, say, folks who are developing policy. It could be very different. So being able to speak the language of the people that you're trying to work with is absolutely critical in moving forward with resiliency across the state.
Okay. The Infrastructure Bank, is it a place where people can knock on the door and walk in and say, I'd like to make a deposit?
So we're not in a bank in that sense, but we are working with public and private sector really to drive investments of either clean water, drinking water, road and bridge, energy efficiency projects. One example of a recent project was in Cumberland, where we worked with the municipality to finance the drilling of 2 new wells for the town. We're going to be seeing an increased now capacity of the water system, about just under 500 million gallons a year of water, and that does a couple things. That provides increased water resiliency for the people of Cumberland, right? Less reliance on neighboring water systems. It was done at a lower cost than the municipality could have received by going out on the open market. But it also provides drinking water that's clean, right, and reliable. And so that's an example of work that we're doing.
Why was Cumberland able to get a better rate through the Infrastructure Bank than going out and bonding the fix?
Yeah, so all the kind of the background technical aspects of how the financial deals are done is sort of out of my role. But it's a good example, I think, of how we're trying to provide.
Well, do you have better rates at the infrastructure bank?
We do.
Because?
Well, it's done through a number of different ways. Again, I'm not the expert on how all the bonds are put together, but I think as you look across different states, there's a number of green banks or infrastructure banks, and they do it by packaging different deals, and we have a very high credit rating as well, which allows us to offer a lower interest rate to our clients.
So is the bank a broker, or is there capital sitting inside some vault somewhere or some account number that's got X number of thousands, millions of dollars that are waiting to be dispersed for projects in the state?
Well, we work with other agencies. So, for example, our Clean Water State Revolving Fund program, we administer that through the Department of Environmental Management. And our Clean Water Drinking Program, we administer that through the Department of Health. So we work with other agency partners to identify priority projects that meet different different goals.
Does the bank have money in it, or is the bank, is it just a department? Is it an administrative arm, or is it literally a financial institution?
Well, we don't receive any money from the state. Our money for the bank.
You're quasi-public.
We're quasi-public, yep. So a lot of the money for the bank does come off of the deals that we do around the state in order to be able to cover our overhead and be able to push forward really high-quality infrastructure projects for the state at a lower cost.
Well, what's the bank's capacity?
That's something I have to get back to you on. Yeah. So,
okay, we'll see. Well, we got a break anyway. Yeah. I may get that answer. I may not in the next couple of minutes. It's a curious conversation. You learning anything? I hope you are. Stay with us.
We are, well, first of all, to be aware of this potential threat.
Yeah.
And then, take appropriate actions to be prepared.
Which are? How do we not get 14 feet of water in the city?
So,
I only got a minute. Go.
Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency did a training exercise in June using this Hurricane Rhode scenario.
Right.
So they are aware of it, and the city of Providence as well. I think this should be brought up to attention to Army Corps of Engineers, who are responsible for the Fox Point Hurricane Barrier. I think that it is important that there will be some means of opening the gates immediately after the storm.
So that's Isaac Guinness from the URI. He's one of the leading oceanographers, not only in the region, but in the world. And he's concerned, with the hurricane season that we have had, that Rhode Island is perhaps not as prepared as it ought to be for what could be an infinitesimally possible, percentage possible, Hurricane Rhode, so to speak, right? And I asked him, well, was Irma the same? Irma was very low chance too. And so there you go. As we talk about the infrastructure bank and resiliency, and your role as Chief Resiliency Officer, I'm hoping you're connected with guys like this who are doing a little bit of a responsible freak show on the state going, you better get ready.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
What do you know about this?
So there's a lot of work happening in Rhode Island already. We're lucky in a very small state to have a really deep bench of scientific experts, agencies that have been working on these efforts for a long time, and we're starting to realize some of the vulnerabilities that we have around the state. So one of the first activities in my role as Chief Resiliency Officer is launching a series that we're calling Resiliency Roundtables. And these roundtables are happening around the state, not just in the coastal areas, but also in the inland areas as well, to identify the critical vulnerabilities that each of these communities are facing.
For instance, like the East Bay could get buried with a big storm.
Exactly.
Water-wise.
So, for example,
how do you get out of there? Right?
So one of the tools, much like you just mentioned, is Storm Tools, which was developed by the Coastal Resources Management Council, and that's predicting that Barrington and the East Bay area is one of the most vulnerable areas in the entire state. Right. So these roundtables are identifying what these vulnerabilities are, so that we can better package it into a statewide plan, and not only a plan, but really a strategy that coordinates investment for better preparing our infrastructure around the state. So for example, you mentioned Hurricane Rhode, and those models were identifying all of the work that has already been done so that we can better kind of stand on the shoulders of that work that's already been done to package it and coordinate it in a statewide effort.
Professor is kind of worried about the hurricane barrier and whether or not it's going to be properly operable to do the kind of finesse work it needs to do to open if we get the kind of, you know, Texas downpour with Harvey that happened there. Are we able to manage and navigate the situation better? Do you have any thoughts on as to what our status is, and are you working with emergency management on those issues?
Yeah, so emergency management has been a critical partner in this statewide effort. They've been participating in these resiliency roundtables. I've also been in discussions with the City of Providence, and I know that they've been studying the hurricane barrier as well. And you also hit on one of the other real key vulnerabilities that we're seeing, not just here in Rhode Island, but globally, is increased precipitation, but not just increased precipitation, the intensity of rainfall. We saw these hurricanes that came through this fall, dropping unbelievable amounts of water.
Right.
So not just worried about coastal inundation, increasing sea level rise and storms, but thinking about that flooding that's coming in from downstream, right, that we've seen other times here in the state of Rhode Island, such as the 2010 storms.
Right. Okay. So I kind of get what you're doing. Are you more of a, are you worried, are you more focused on prep for natural disaster, or just systems that need to be updated throughout the state, a la in Cumberland, water, sewer, roads, whatever?
Yeah, so my role
Trying to figure out what you do when you go in the morning. You're thinking about one thing, 10 things, 20 things, what is it?
Right now it's a lot of things. This resiliency strategy in my role as the Chief Resiliency Officer is a major focus of my efforts. So coordinating these 10 resiliency roundtables, working with many partners across the state, from academic institutions to all of the agencies, to coordinating with the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council, which is underneath Governor Raimondo, making sure that all the agencies are coordinating. And that's been one of the things that has really been the focus of my efforts in both of the hats that I wear, is trying to better coordinate the limited resources that we have. Each of the agencies has a really, a big portfolio of work that they already have to do. Is there a way that I can start to make the connections between some of the vulnerabilities as well as opportunities to push resiliency?
Are the agencies in Rhode Island that are all engaged in this kind of conversation working well with each other?
I think so. I think so.
Are you there to increase their interactivity and seamlessness?
Absolutely.
That's your role.
Yeah, so I'm in constant contact with each of the agencies, and they've all been great players and participants in this work to date.
Okay, did you get that part? I think that's easier to understand. As far as the technical financial stuff, I would just submit that calling this thing the infrastructure bank, which they did in 2015. From the former, what was it called before? I've got notes here. What
was it? A Rhode Island Clean Water Financing Agency.
Yeah, well, that makes actually. Do you know why they changed that?
Well, about 3 years ago.
Because it seems like a finance agency rather than a bank. Why are they confusing me and everybody else?
It allowed us to broaden our mission. So in 2015, the governor worked with the general treasurer to expand the mission of the bank to now include energy efficiency programs, road and bridge, brownfield, and that really paved the way for my position as Director of Stormwater and Resiliency, because we recognized that all the projects that we needed to do around the state were not just focused on clean water and drinking water, but have other infrastructure opportunities as well.
Okay. I got more questions. Stay with us. There's Governor Raimondo creating the position of Chief Resiliency Officer, and he is here with us. So I'm trying to figure out whether the infrastructure bank, which I think ought to be named something different because it confuses people, I have a lot of people who have thoughts on it and don't really understand it. It seems to me that it's perfectly pragmatic to have a Chief Resiliency Officer. I get it now. I mean, there's somebody who's just kind of keeping everybody thinking together and interacting and making sure people are talking to each other, agencies are talking to each other. You're doing prep, you're doing project work to make sure that towns get more affordable solutions to issues. But I'm trying to figure out whether this whole this entity is part of some of the planning philosophy that seems to be emanating from Washington, which is all about controlling planning. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Just Brookings work,
Yep.
Raimondo taking
Yep.
Brookings notes, really trying to, I think, manhandle the way this place exists and then grows. Do you follow me?
Well, I think you bring up exactly the point of why my position is at the infrastructure bank. In many other states, the chief resiliency officer is located in Department of Environmental Management, or is in statewide planning, or is underneath the governor at the State House, for example. The reason why my position is at the infrastructure bank really is to drive financing for implementation of projects. And I think one really great example of resiliency and the infrastructure bank coming together is in the Warwick wastewater treatment facility. As you probably remember, in 2010 we had some incredible storms.
Bad problems there.
The wastewater treatment facility in Warwick was completely flooded out. Right, the water overtopped the berms and came in from every possible angle.
And every household
and
was
every
struggling,
household, right. So not just the treatment plant, but everything else around it. So we've been working over the past few years with public and private financing to protect that wastewater treatment facility by the increasing of a berm around the facility, which now will protect the facility within a 500-year projected storm.
What was the cost of that project, remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
But millions.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a cobbling together or stacking of a number of different financing and funding sources from federal to local.
Who's on the hook for the financing that the infrastructure bank provides? Is it the bank itself, or is it discharged to the entity, say Cumberland, the treatment plant? Who holds the notes?
So
and has the financial responsibility to follow through on paying for these things?
So that would be the municipality or whoever the client is that we're financing.
Okay.
Yep.
It's interesting. I mean, I think that we'll be more focused on the kind of work that you're doing as more and more projects come online. How many projects do you have online right now?
Well, that's part of this, resiliency roundtable, as well as this coordinating effort. So, big part of this strategy is going to be planning for the future, kind of the long-term goals and where we need to be in terms of infrastructure, but also looking for those early win projects right now, such as the Warwick wastewater treatment facility, the town of Bristol financing a green infrastructure or a natural infrastructure project to lessen the number of beach closure days.
Are all the government levels, I mean the elected levels, are they all familiar with what you're doing?
Yes, I've been presenting and moving around the government and doing presentations.
You have to do some PR to create an orientation for them?
Absolutely. I mean, resiliency is inherently not a well-understood term, right? So being able to learn how to discuss this with our partners inside and outside of state government is going to be absolutely critical. And that's these roundtables and planning processes is absolutely essential. The
Chief Resiliency Officer. Do you arrest anybody, by the way?
Sorry?
Do you arrest anybody?
I'm looking for my badge.
You're an officer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you've been a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, stay in touch with us on the projects.
I will do.
You get all that? There'll be a quiz. Final word when we come back. All righty. Listen, you should research the infrastructure bank. I'm not going to sit here and rail over the name of the thing, but I think it does a lot of work that I think a lot of people have opinions on without doing a lot of investigation. And as far as the Chief Resiliency Officer, I think after that exercise, it makes perfect sense to me. I hope it does to you. If it doesn't, let me know. We'll talk about it. We'll see you on the radio weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO tomorrow, of course. And tomorrow night, we're bumped at 7:30 because of CBS football, and Jeopardy comes over to MRI. And then at night, we got the World Series. So we'll repeat Mark Patinkin's conversation late night tomorrow night and be back with you on Friday. You got all that? Good night.